Having previously told the story of the Baseford Murders in 1837, all that is left now is to give an opinion. The hard thing is, it's hard to give an opinion about something that happened in 1837, because it's hard to understand what life was like then for somebody who's never lived through something like that. The fact that this guy with kids could have been thrown out by his landlord and left completely destitute is something that we're not entirely familiar with nowadays. Sure, there's plenty of people living below the poverty line and struggling, but the council certainly would have found somebody with children some form of accommodation. And there is perhaps something to his argument that it was some kind of mercy killing, because the life his 4 children would have lived on the streets probably would not have been a very good one at all. However, this is marred slightly by the fact that the guy sold his son's own boots and went spending money at a pub. That kind of kills, for me, a great deal of the sympathy I would have for him. I wouldn't say it totally kills it, because I'm sure plenty of people have wanted to crawl to the bottom of a bottle and drink their woes away, and for all we know, he could have been throwing himself in the River Trent as soon as he was adequately drunk enough, if he hadn't been arrested. We also don't have access to a lot of information, like what prior rental agreements he actually had with this guy's son. Was this the first time he'd been late on the rent? You know, what's the wider story? What are the true relationships there? And why was he late on the rent? Was he simply not earning enough with his wages, his son's wage, and the money he was getting from his father-in-law for providing food? Or was he just pissing this money up the wall? And I mean, that's something which isn't an old-fashioned problem that's gone away. There's plenty of parents now who will take their money and suffer the children and just get pissed. That is something that certainly hasn't changed. People would think that how he calmly explained everything and showed no emotion is some form of definite sign of guilt, and that it wasn't a mercy, he's just a bad person. But it's hard to judge that, because people do go into all kinds of different states after committing a crime or being involved in something bad. Maybe he was overwhelmed and simply part of him inside turned off. He couldn't face the emotions, so his mind subdued them. The human mind works in an incredibly weird way sometimes. And, you know, it's hard to tell. If he'd been crying all over the place and putting on a show, it very well could have been that. It could have been a show. I don't think somebody's outward emotions are always necessarily the best indication of what is going on inside their actual head. So while I condemn this man's actions and feel nothing but sympathy for the poor children, I have to admit that I've never lived through the time period he has, obviously. I've never been faced with that kind of situation, so it's not really my job to judge him as such. Just basically my deepest sympathy really falls for those children. And I'm very happy that as a society we've moved on a bit, and hopefully far less people are at risk of homelessness with children. I'm not saying things are perfect nowadays. There's still a lot to work for. We've still got young children who are going to school hungry and who are having to worry about financial woes that a young person really shouldn't be faced with. But I would like to think we are a lot further on from when we were back then. Well, that's me, Kerr9000, signing out, hoping that you've enjoyed my take on this crime. Maybe you've learned something, and I will be back soon with a new video on a new crime. I've already started researching one, so hopefully if you enjoyed this, you'll join me again. So take care of yourself and those around you, and have a great rest of your day. Laters, Gators.